Welcome back, everybody, to Tabletop 100, the series where I explain various game systems and how to get into the wonderful world of tabletop role-playing games. At this point, we've already gone over some of the basics you need to know for the majority of systems. So now, it's time to jump into our first actual gaming system, the grandfather of them all, Dungeons and Dragons. Now, while the Player's Handbook does have a step-by-step guide on how to develop all your characters, we are going to be going in a slightly different order than the book presents. Today we are going to be discussing how to generate your stats. Now, for a quick refresher of what the stats you're going to be experiencing in Dungeons & Dragons are, you have Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma. Now, those are the basic ones that a lot of the systems that Dungeons & Dragons are based off of use, but we're going to be detailing how you get those numbers. Now, while we've already gone over what the ability scores are, just a quick refresher. Strength is how well you can crush a tomato. Dexterity, how well you dodge a tomato. Constitution, how well you can eat a bad tomato. Intelligence, tomato is a fruit. Wisdom, tomatoes do not belong in a fruit salad. And charisma is your ability to sell a tomato-based fruit salad. But we're not here to talk about what they are. We're here to tell you about how you use them and how you get them. But how do you determine your ability scores in Dungeons & Dragons? Well, there are three distinct ways. Point buy, the standard array, and rolling for your ability scores. I'm going to go over each one and explain to you some of the strengths and weaknesses that come with each method. But first, a quick overview of the numbers you're going to be seeing for this. All of your stats generally go from 1 to 20, and 20 being the maximum that you can have. Are there ways to go past 20? Yes, but it does require a case of magical items to augment your ability scores beyond that. Now, the first method I want to talk about is rolling for your stats. This is the method that I prefer to use for all of my characters across every RPG. In order to roll for your stats, for D&D at least, you need to roll 4d6. And then after you roll that, take away your lowest number and add the remaining 3 together to get your stat. Do that 5 more times and apply them to the scores you have, and you have your ability scores for your character. The good thing about this is it has incredibly high highs. If you roll 6s, you have an 18 naturally, 2 away from the highest. But you also have the potential to have a 3 in one of your scores, which I have seen happen and honestly can lead to some really fun character moments. The next method I want to talk about is the standard array. It gives you stats of 8, 10, 12, 13, 14, and 15. This is the method for people who just want to create a character quickly and get on with the game itself. It's also probably the easiest way to explain getting stats to a new player, but it does have the downside of you're not going to have super high highs. On the plus side, you're not going to have super low lows either. You're going to have a very balanced character at the start of the game. Point buy is another beast entirely. It's probably the most complicated method for determining your stats in Dungeons & Dragons, but it is one that lets you customize things to your whim. To start with, all of your stats begin at 8. You then have 27 points to distribute among each of your stats. Now, you can't increase a skill past 15 with this method. But in order to increase a skill from, say, 8 to 9, it would cost 1 point, and so on and so forth until you hit 13. To go from 13 to 14, and then 14 to 15, would cost 2 points for each thing. So to get from 13 to 15, that is 4 points. It has some of the same benefits as the standard array. You're not going to have a terrible character. Nothing is going to be below 8. But it does let you customize things a little more to your liking to start with. Now, there is one more thing to talk about when determining your stats, and that is your race. Each race gives you either a +1 and a +2, or something along those lines, in certain stats. Although with the recent release of Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, you are allowed to customize that to your whim. You can replace a +2 in Constitution with a +2 in Intelligence if you so desire. However, if you do change it, you cannot have 2 ability score increases in the same ability score. If you already had a +2 in Constitution and you get a +1 in something else and you change it, you can't make that +1 become another +1 for Constitution. it would have to be in something different, like, say, dexterity. Once you have determined what your final ability scores are through your stat generation and races, it's time to turn to this table to figure out what your modifiers are. A 10 or an 11 is a 0, which means it's basically the human average. Any even number above 10 is a +1, so 12 is a +1, 14 becomes +2, and so on and so forth. Now, it doesn't cap at 20, which is a +5. If you got to, say, 22, that's a +6, and so on and so forth. Every odd number below 10 is a -1, so 9, 7, and so on and so forth. A 0 in ability score also generally means you are dead. No questions asked, you cannot get something below a 0. But that's it for today's lesson. You know how your ability scores work, how to generate them. So, go forward and join me next time as we talk about some of the races you can play as and the bonuses and skills you will get with them. Until then, happy gaming.